The sound of raucous laughter cut through the smoky air of Murphy's last round like a blade through flesh. Rachel Ivory stood behind the bar, her hands steady as she polished a glass with mechanical precision, though anyone watching closely might have noticed the slight tremor in her fingers. The Navy SEALs had been celebrating for 3 hours now, their voices growing louder with each round, their jokes increasingly crude. She'd served hundreds like them over the past 2 years, always keeping her head down, always staying invisible. Tonight would be different, though she didn't know it yet. Mason Blake, 6 feet 4 inches of pure muscle and arrogance, slammed his beer down on the scarred wooden bar. The foam sloshed over the rim as he pointed directly at Rachel's wrist. "Hey, check this out, boys. Little lady here thinks she's one of us." His voice boomed across the crowded establishment, drawing the attention of all 50 patrons packed into the dimly lit space. "Got herself a cute little anchor tattoo. What's the matter, sweetheart? Couldn't find a butterfly at the tattoo parlor?" Ashley Sterling, her blonde hair pulled back in a regulation bun that somehow still managed to look fashionable, leaned forward from her perch at the corner of the bar. The intelligence officer's eyes were cold, calculating, like a predator sizing up prey. She swirled her whiskey with deliberate slowness before speaking. "Oh, this is precious. Another wannabe trying to stolen valor her way into respect. Pathetic." The word dripped with venom, each syllable carefully enunciated to maximum effect. Rachel's response was barely audible, her eyes fixed on the glass she was cleaning. I like the ocean." The words came out small, fragile, like a child's excuse. Her shoulders hunched forward, making her already petite frame seem even smaller behind the massive oak bar. The entire table erupted in laughter. Connor Webb, the team's weapons specialist, stood up so quickly his chair scraped against the floor, his eyes blazed with righteous indignation. "Like the ocean? Do you have any idea what this symbol means? This is the mark of those who've sacrificed everything for their country. Men and women who have bled in places you can't even pronounce." His hands clenched into fists at his sides. Liam Foster, barely 23 and desperate to prove himself to his senior teammates, jumped in eagerly. "Don't waste your breath, Connor. Look at her. Weak as a wet kitten. Probably got it to impress some sailor boyfriend who dumped her." He high-fived another SEAL, basking in the approval of his peers. But in the farthest corner of the bar, partially hidden in shadow, Commander Ethan Carter slowly set down his glass. The amber liquid inside barely rippled, a testament to his controlled movements. His weathered face, marked by 15 years of combat operations, remained impassive, but his eyes had sharpened to laser focus. Something about the way Rachel stood triggered alarm bells in his mind. Her weight distribution was wrong for a civilian, shoulders angled precisely 15 degrees, left foot positioned half a step back. It was the stance of someone trained to draw a concealed weapon in 0.3 seconds. His pulse quickened as he studied the tattoo more carefully. The angle, the specific shading, the exact placement on her wrist down to the millimeter. He'd seen that exact tattoo before, but that was impossible. Those people were all dead. The bar's atmosphere had shifted, electric with the promise of confrontation. Other patrons, a mix of off-duty military and locals, had turned to watch the show. Some pulled out phones, sensing something worth recording. Grace Amber, a regular who had lost her left leg to an IED in Afghanistan, shifted uncomfortably on her bar stool. She'd been coming here for 3 years, knew Rachel as the quiet bartender who always remembered her drink and never asked about the prosthetic. Something about tonight felt different, dangerous. Rachel continued cleaning glasses, each movement precise, economical. If anyone had been paying attention, they might have noticed she never turned her back completely to the room, always maintaining situational awareness. Her breathing remained steady, controlled, even as Mason Blake moved closer, using his size to intimidate. "You know what I think?" Mason's voice dropped to a menacing whisper that somehow carried across the entire bar. "I think you're a fraud. A desperate little girl playing dress-up, disrespecting real warriors." He leaned across the bar, close enough that Rachel could smell the beer on his breath. "That tattoo is an insult to every real sailor who's earned the right to wear it." Dr. Samuel Park, sitting 3 stools down, adjusted his glasses and watched the scene unfold with unusual interest. As the base psychiatrist, he'd treated hundreds of combat veterans, knew the signs of PTSD, could read trauma in the smallest gestures. The way Rachel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the micro expressions that flickered across her face before being suppressed, the perfect stillness that came not from fear but from training. He'd seen that kind of control before, in operators who'd been through experiences so classified their own families would never know what they'd endured. Ashley Sterling stood up, her movements fluid and predatory. "You know what we do to people who fake military service? It's a federal crime, sweetheart. Stolen valor can get you 18 months in prison." She pulled out her phone, fingers dancing across the screen. "Let me just run a quick check on you. Rachel Ivory, was it? Let's see what the database says about your military service." "Please," Rachel's voice was soft, almost pleading. "I'm just trying to do my job. The tattoo, it's personal." "Personal?" Connor Webb laughed harshly. "Everything about military service is personal. The question is whether you've earned the right to make it personal." He picked up an empty beer bottle, spinning it absently between his fingers. "You know what? I bet you can't even name the 5 basic SEAL team weapons systems. If you're feeling that burning anger right now, that sense of injustice watching someone get bullied for no reason, you're exactly who needs to see what happens next. Because sometimes the quietest person in the room is quiet for a reason. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, in the next 10 minutes, everything you think you know is about to flip completely upside down." The tension in Murphy's last round had reached a breaking point. Mason Blake had moved behind the bar now, technically off limits for customers, but nobody was going to stop a 240-pound SEAL team member. Rachel backed up against the wall of liquor bottles, her escape routes cut off. To anyone watching, she looked like a cornered animal, but Commander Carter noticed something else. Her feet had shifted into a combat stance so subtle that only someone with advanced close-quarters combat training would recognize it. "Let's see that tattoo up close." Mason reached for Rachel's wrist. She pulled back, but he was faster, stronger. His massive hand encircled her forearm, yanking it forward. "Yep, just as I thought. Probably got it at some mall. The lines aren't even regulation depth. This is amateur work." But as he gripped her wrist, Rachel's other hand moved. It was a motion so quick, so precise, that most people missed it entirely. She'd positioned her thumb against a specific pressure point on Mason's wrist, not applying pressure, just resting there. It was a move taught only in the most advanced hand-to-hand combat courses, a technique that could drop a man twice her size if executed properly. She didn't execute it. She simply held position, waiting. Liam Foster had climbed onto the bar itself, playing to the crowd. "Everyone, gather round. We've got ourselves a genuine faker here. Instagram warrior, I bet. Probably has a whole collection of tactical gear she's never used." The crowd pressed closer, phones out, recording everything. Grace Amber finally spoke up, her voice cutting through the noise. "Come on, guys. Leave her alone. She's just doing her job." Her military bearing was unmistakable, even sitting down. 3 tours in Afghanistan had taught her to recognize unnecessary cruelty when she saw it. Ashley Sterling turned on her with a sneer. "Oh, look who's defending her. Another one who thinks wearing the uniform makes you special. Some of us actually did more than drive trucks in the motor pool." It was a deliberately cruel jab, designed to hurt. Grace's face flushed, but she held her ground. "I did my part. We all did. That doesn't give you the right to harass civilians." "Civilian," Connor Webb interjected. "She's claiming to be one of us with that tattoo. That makes her fair game for verification." The word verification seemed to trigger something in Rachel. Her breathing changed just for a second, shifting to a pattern anyone who had been through SEER training would recognize. Survival, evasion, resistance, escape. The breathing technique used to maintain calm under interrogation. Commander Carter stood up slowly, his movement drawing several eyes. At 6 feet 2 inches, he wasn't the biggest man in the room, but there was something about his presence that commanded attention. The gray streaks in his hair and the lines around his eyes spoke of years in combat zones most people couldn't find on a map. He moved through the crowd with purpose, though his destination wasn't immediately clear. Mason Blake had turned Rachel's wrist over, examining the tattoo more closely. "You know what's really pathetic? You probably tell people you served, probably have a whole fake backstory. What was it, sweetheart? Navy? Marines? Or did you go full fantasy and claim special forces?" Rachel's voice, when she spoke, was steady despite her position. "I never claimed anything. You assumed." "Assumed?" Ashley's laugh was sharp, brittle. "You're wearing military symbolism in a military bar outside a military base. That's not assumption, that's invitation." Dr. Samuel Park had moved closer as well, though more subtly than Commander Carter. He positioned himself near the corner of the bar, where he could intervene if necessary. In his 5 years treating special operations personnel, he'd learned to recognize the signs of someone about to snap. Rachel was exhibiting none of them. Instead, she showed something far more interesting, the perfect calm of someone who'd been in situations far more dangerous than this and survived. "You know what we should do?" Liam Foster suggested, his young face flushed with alcohol and adrenaline. "We should make her prove she's earned that tattoo. Some physical training, nothing serious, just some basic exercises. If she's military, she can handle it." "No," Rachel said quietly. The single word carried more weight than it should have, delivered with a finality that made several people pause. "No?" Mason Blake's grip on her wrist tightened. "You don't get to say no. You brought this on yourself when you decided to play pretend." The next few seconds unfolded in slow motion. Rachel's free hand came up, not an attack, but in a gesture of surrender, palm open. But the movement itself was telling. Her hand moved through 3 distinct positions on its way up, each one a potential strike point that could have incapacitated Mason if she'd chosen to engage. She didn't. She simply raised her hand in surrender. "I'll take it off," she said quietly. "If it offends you that much, I'll cover it up. I never meant to disrespect anyone." But Connor Webb had noticed something else, a scar on Rachel's forearm, partially hidden by her sleeve. It was a very specific type of scar, one caused by a particular kind of shrapnel used in IEDs favored by insurgents in a very specific region of Afghanistan. The kind of scar you only got if you had been in certain valleys during certain operations that were still classified. Speaking of hidden capabilities, modern military-grade smartphones now include features that would blow your mind. Encrypted communication, emergency beacon activation, even biometric scanners that read more than just fingerprints. These devices can detect stress patterns, analyze tactical situations, and provide real-time intelligence gathering. The same technology that helps identify friend from foe in the field. The revelation about the scar had caught Connor's attention, but before he could process it fully, Ashley Sterling announced triumphantly, "Nothing. There's no Rachel Ivory in any military database. Not Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, not even Coast Guard." She held up her phone like a trophy. "You're nobody. A ghost." The word ghost caused the smallest reaction in Rachel, just a tightening around her eyes that lasted less than a second. But Commander Carter saw it. His blood ran cold. Ghost Team. The designation given to operators who officially didn't exist, whose records were erased, who were listed as KIA to protect ongoing operations so classified that even their existence was considered need to know. Mason Blake suddenly yanked Rachel forward, pulling her partially over the bar. The movement was violent enough that several people gasped. Her shirt sleeve tore at the shoulder seam, revealing more skin than intended. "You want to play soldier? Fine. Let's see how you handle actual pressure." But as her sleeve tore, something else was revealed. Another tattoo, partially visible on her upper arm. It wasn't complete, just the edge of what looked like a larger design. Commander Carter's sharp intake of breath was audible to those nearest him. He recognized that partial image, the wing of a very specific eagle design, one that was only given to members of units so classified they didn't officially exist. "Wait," Dr. Park spoke up, his voice carrying the authority of his rank as a lieutenant commander in the Navy Medical Corps. "This has gone far enough. Release her immediately." Ashley Sterling rounded on him. "Stay out of this, Doc. This isn't your business." "A civilian being assaulted in my presence makes it my business," Dr. Park replied calmly. "And I suspect there's more to this situation than any of you realize." "More?" Liam Foster scoffed. "Like what? She's clearly a fake. Look at her. She's about to cry." But Rachel wasn't about to cry. Her eyes remained dry, focused. She was calculating, analyzing, running through scenarios. Her body language had shifted minutely, weight redistributed, ready to move in any direction necessary. She still didn't act, maintaining her facade of helplessness, but the potential for action hummed beneath her skin like electricity. Grace Amber had stood up now, her prosthetic leg clicking slightly as she moved. "Mason, let her go. This isn't right, and you know it." "Since when do you give orders?" Mason shot back, though his grip on Rachel loosened slightly. Commander Carter had made his way to within 10 feet of the confrontation, close enough to intervene, far enough to maintain plausible deniability. His hand had unconsciously moved to his hip, where his sidearm would have been if he'd been on duty. Old habits. The crowd had grown, other SEALs from different teams joining the spectacle. The bartender from the morning shift, Noah Flynn, had emerged from the back room, taking in the scene with alarm. "Hey, what's going on here? Rachel, you okay?" "She's fine," Connor Webb answered for her. "Just learning a lesson about respect." But Noah noticed something the others had missed. Rachel's eyes had flickered to 3 different points in the room, in rapid succession: the emergency exit, the fire extinguisher, and a specific bottle on the top shelf. It was a tactical assessment, identifying weapons and escape routes. No civilian did that, especially not under stress. "You know what I think?" Ashley Sterling said, her voice carrying across the now silent bar. "I think she's a deserter, someone who couldn't hack it and ran. That's why she's not in the system." Rachel's response was measured, controlled. "I'm not a deserter." "Then what are you?" Mason demanded, shaking her slightly. The answer, when it came, was so quiet that only those closest heard it. "I'm nobody." But the way she said it, the specific inflection, the weight behind the words, it meant something. Commander Carter knew that phrase. It was the response given by Ghost Team operators when asked about their unit affiliation. "I'm nobody" meant, "I don't exist" meant, "My missions are so classified my own mother thinks I'm dead." Suddenly, the lights in the bar flickered. Not a power issue, but someone had hit the dimmer switch. In the brief moment of darkness, Rachel moved. When the lights came back up a second later, she had somehow twisted out of Mason's grip and was standing 3 feet away, her back to the wall, hands at her sides. The movement had been so fast, so smooth, that most people weren't even sure she'd moved at all. "How did you—" Mason started, looking at his empty hands in confusion. "Lucky break," Rachel said quietly. "Your grip slipped." But Commander Carter had seen it. The technique she'd used was called a ghost slip, taught only to Tier 1 operators. It required perfect timing, exceptional flexibility, and muscle memory drilled through thousands of repetitions. No civilian could execute it, especially not under stress. Connor Webb had pulled out his phone now, switching to a different app. "You know what? Let me try something else." He aimed the phone's flashlight at Rachel's tattoo, but it wasn't a normal flashlight. It was a UV light app, something he used to check currency and IDs. Sometimes tattoo ink shows different under UV. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding." Rachel's entire body tensed. "Don't." It was a single word, but it carried command authority. Not a plea, not a request, an order. Several of the SEALs unconsciously straightened, their training responding to the tone before their conscious minds could override it. But Connor had already activated the UV light. As the purple glow washed over Rachel's wrist, something appeared beneath the regular tattoo. Numbers, coordinates, and a designation that made Connor's hands start shaking. "That's not possible," he whispered. "What?" Mason demanded. "What do you see?" Connor's voice was barely audible. "GT7, Ghost Team 7. The bar erupted in chaos. Ghost teams were legend, myth, the kind of thing drunk SEALs talked about in hushed tones. Ultra-black operations, so classified that their existence was denied at every level. Teams that were officially listed as KIA, their families told they were dead, all so they could operate in the shadows without any connection to the United States government. "That's ridiculous," Ashley protested, but her voice had lost its earlier confidence. "Ghost teams aren't real." Commander Carter stepped forward into the light. "They're real." His voice cut through the noise like a blade. "And if that designation is authentic, we have a serious situation here." All eyes turned to him. His reputation preceded him, 15 years of operations, everything from Iraq to Afghanistan to places that would never be acknowledged. If anyone would know about ghost teams, it would be him. Rachel's eyes met his for the first time. Recognition flared in both their gazes, quickly suppressed. They knew each other, had known each other, in another life, another identity, another world where the mission always came first and personal connections were a luxury no one could afford. "Sir," Mason had unconsciously shifted to a more respectful tone. "You're saying she's—" "I'm saying," Commander Carter said carefully, "that if that designation is real, then everyone in this bar needs to shut up and back away. Because Ghost Team operators are authorized to use lethal force to protect their identities. And the fact that she hasn't already put half of you in the hospital shows remarkable restraint." The silence that followed was deafening. 50 people stood frozen, processing the implications. If she was really Ghost Team, if she was really one of those mythical operators who handled missions too dangerous, too sensitive, too morally complex for even regular special forces, then they had been threatening someone who could kill everyone in the room with her bare hands. Still think she's just a wannabe? The breadcrumbs are adding up to something massive. If you're picking up on the clues, drop a comment below with your theory. And if this is giving you chills, that like button helps more people discover stories like this. Liam Foster was the first to break the silence, his young voice cracking slightly. But she's so small, so quiet. Dr. Park spoke up, his clinical voice cutting through the confusion. The most dangerous people usually are. Being underestimated is a tactical advantage. Rachel still hadn't moved from her position against the wall. Her eyes tracked everyone in the room, calculating threats, measuring distances, planning contingencies. But she didn't act. She simply waited, patient as a spider in its web. Ashley Sterling, trying to regain control of the situation, pulled out her phone again. "This is ridiculous. I'm calling the MPs. They can verify her identity." "No," Commander Carter's voice was firm. "If she's Ghost Team, military police have no jurisdiction. This goes straight to JSOC. And trust me, you don't want to be the one who compromised a black operator's cover." Mason Blake had backed away from Rachel, his earlier bravado completely evaporated. "We didn't know? How could we know?" "You couldn't," Rachel spoke for the first time in minutes. "That's the point." Her voice had changed. The meek, submissive tone was gone, replaced by something harder, colder, infinitely more dangerous. It was like watching a mask slip, revealing something predatory beneath. Connor Webb was still staring at the UV revelation on her wrist. "The coordinates: 35.6, 764 degrees north, 139.6500 degrees east. That's Tokyo." The effect of those words on Commander Carter was electric. He went rigid, his face draining of color. "Tokyo, August 23rd, 2019. Rachel's eyes closed briefly. "You remember?" "Remember?" Carter's voice was hoarse. "How could I forget? The embassy. The extraction that went sideways. 7 operators trapped in a kill box with no way out." Grace Amber gasped. She knew that operation. Everyone in special operations did. It was taught as a case study in sacrifice and tactical brilliance. 7 operators survived an impossible situation, saved by an 8th who stayed behind to buy them time. That 8th operator was listed as KIA, body never recovered. "But the one who saved them died," Grace said. "Everyone knows that." Commander Carter's response was barely a whisper. "Did she?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Rachel pushed off from the wall, moving with liquid grace toward the center of the room. Every step was measured, controlled, predatory. The meek bartender was gone, replaced by something infinitely more dangerous. "Death," she said quietly, "is sometimes just another operational cover." Mason Blake's legs seemed to give out. He sat down heavily on a bar stool. "You're her. You're Phoenix." The name rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Phoenix, the Ghost Team operator who'd become legend, the one who had infiltrated a terrorist cell in Yemen, who had extracted a CIA asset from North Korea, who'd done things that would never be declassified, never be acknowledged, never be rewarded except with a star on a wall at Langley that would never bear a name. But Ashley Sterling wasn't ready to give up. "This is insane. Anyone can fake a UV tattoo. Anyone can memorize some coordinates. We need proof." Rachel's smile was thin, dangerous. "Proof? You want proof?" She reached for her collar, pulling it aside slightly. There, just visible on her collarbone, was a scar. But not just any scar. It was a very specific pattern, one caused by a Russian-made fragmentation grenade, the kind used in only one confirmed incident. Commander Carter's voice was thick with emotion. "Kandahar, Operation Blackwater. You took that grenade meant for my team." "I took it because I was wearing body armor and you weren't," Rachel replied matter-of-factly. "Simple tactical decision." "Tactical?" Carter's voice broke. "You were in surgery for 16 hours. They said you died twice on the table." 3 times, actually, Rachel corrected. "But who's counting?" The crowd had pressed closer now, but respectfully, like pilgrims approaching a shrine. These were people who understood sacrifice, who knew what it meant to put mission before self, and they were looking at someone who had taken that principle to its absolute limit. Noah Flynn, the morning bartender, finally found his voice. "Why are you here? Why work in a bar?" Rachel's expression softened slightly. "Because dead people need jobs too, and sometimes the best place to hide is in plain sight." Dr. Park stepped forward. "I knew." The moment you walked in for your job interview 2 years ago, I knew you were more than you seemed. The way you moved, the hypervigilance, the strategic positioning. But I also saw someone trying to find peace. Peace, Rachel repeated the word like it was foreign. I don't even remember what that feels like. Lily Chen, a captain from the base who had been watching silently, spoke up. If you're really Phoenix, if you're really Ghost Team 7, then why reveal yourself now? Your cover's blown. Rachel looked at Mason Blake, who was still sitting in shock. Because bullies need to learn that not everyone is what they seem. And because... She paused, her eyes finding Commander Carter's. Because I'm tired of being dead. The weight of that admission hung in the air. Here was someone who had given up everything, her identity, her family, her entire life, for missions that would never be acknowledged, and she'd finally reached her breaking point. Connor Webb set down his phone with shaking hands. The database. When Ashley searched for you, it came up empty, but that's not normal empty. I just realized it's too empty. No social media, no credit history, no birth certificate. You've been scrubbed. Professionally scrubbed, Rachel confirmed. My parents think I died in a training accident. My sister got a flag and a medal she's not allowed to ask questions about. Everyone I grew up with thinks I'm buried in Arlington. The human cost of her service was suddenly, painfully real. This wasn't just about secret missions and classified operations. This was about a woman who had ceased to exist so that others could live. Show them, Commander Carter said suddenly. Show them the real tattoo. Rachel hesitated. Sir, they have already seen too much, Carter said. Might as well show them the truth. Slowly, reluctantly, Rachel rolled up her sleeve fully. The partial tattoo that had been visible earlier was revealed in its entirety. It wasn't just an eagle. It was a phoenix rising from ashes, wrapped around a trident, with 7 stars above it, and beneath, in Latin, words that made several people step back. Mortua vivos docent. The dead teach the living, Dr. Park translated. But under the UV light, the tattoo transformed. The phoenix's eyes glowed with hidden ink, revealing numbers, a service number that didn't follow any standard military format. The stars contained names, 7 names, written in ink only visible under black light, the 7 operators she'd saved in Tokyo. Commander Carter's name was the first star. Veterans like Rachel often struggle with insurance claims for injuries that officially never happened. Specialized military insurance providers now offer coverage for classified service members, protecting assets and medical needs even when records are sealed. These policies understand that not all heroes can prove their service publicly. The emotional weight in the room was suffocating. Here was proof, undeniable proof, that the woman they'd been mocking, threatening, humiliating, was a hero of the highest order, someone who had sacrificed everything most people hold dear for a country that could never acknowledge her service. Mason Blake stood up slowly, his massive frame unsteady. I grabbed you. I threatened you. I could have killed you in 17 different ways, Rachel said calmly, but that's not who I am anymore, or at least, that's not who I'm trying to be. Ashley Sterling had gone pale, her earlier arrogance completely evaporated. The federal crime. I threatened you with stolen valor charges. Rachel's smile was humorless. Ironic, isn't it? The one person in this bar who could never be charged with stolen valor is the one person you accused. Liam Foster, the youngest of the group, suddenly dropped to one knee. It was an instinctive gesture, one of respect, of acknowledgement. Ma'am, Get up, Rachel said sharply. I'm not an officer. I'm not even officially military. I'm nobody, remember? But others were following Liam's lead, not kneeling, but standing at attention, offering the respect due to someone who had earned it in blood and sacrifice. Grace Amber limped forward, her prosthetic leg clicking on the floor. I lost this in Helmand Province. Thought I knew what sacrifice meant, but you lost yourself. We all lose something, Rachel replied. Yours is just more visible. The conversation was interrupted by the sudden buzz of phones, multiple phones, all at once. Every military person in the bar was getting the same alert. Commander Carter looked at his screen and went rigid. Base lockdown. All personnel report immediately. Threat level Alpha. The bar erupted in motion. SEALs, Marines, Navy personnel, all heading for the door. But Commander Carter stopped at Rachel's side. This isn't coincidence, is it? He asked quietly. Rachel's expression was grim. They found me. My UV tattoo showing up on Connor's phone, it triggered a satellite recognition protocol. My handlers know where I am now. Handlers? But you're dead. Dead people still have handlers, Rachel replied, and they don't like it when their ghosts become visible. As the military personnel streamed out, Rachel noticed something else. 3 people in the bar hadn't reacted to the alert. They were sitting at different tables, hadn't interacted all night, but now they were all watching her. Their positioning was tactical, covering all exits. Company, she said quietly to Carter. He followed her gaze, immediately understanding. Cleaners? Probably. The agency doesn't like loose ends. You need to run. Rachel shook her head. I'm tired of running, tired of being dead. Maybe it's time to come back to life. The 3 watchers stood up simultaneously, their movements coordinated. They weren't moving to attack, not yet, but their intent was clear. Rachel was blown, and blown assets were liabilities. Dr. Park stepped up beside them. There's a back exit through my office. I can get you out. No, Rachel said firmly. No more running, no more hiding. She walked toward the nearest watcher, a man in his 40s with forgettable features and dead eyes. Classic agency. He tensed as she approached, hand moving toward his concealed weapon. Tell them, Rachel said loud enough for all 3 to hear. Tell them Phoenix is done being dead. If they want me, they know where to find me. The man's expression didn't change, but he nodded slightly. Message received. As the last of the military personnel left the bar, Rachel turned back to Mason, Ashley, Connor, and Liam, who had stayed behind despite the alert. You should go, she told them. Mason shook his head. We owe you an apology. You owe me nothing, Rachel replied. You couldn't have known. But we should have been better, Ashley said, her voice small. We should have been respectful regardless. Rachel studied them for a moment. These 4 who had tormented her, who had represented everything wrong with military culture, the bullying, the arrogance, the assumption of superiority. But she also saw something else. Young people, trained to be warriors, struggling to find their place in a world that demanded they be both killers and heroes. You want to make it right? She asked. They nodded eagerly. Then be better. Next time you see someone you think is weak, remember tonight. Remember that strength doesn't always look like strength. Sometimes it looks like the quiet person just trying to do their job. Connor Webb stepped forward. The base locked down. Is it because of you? Partially, Rachel admitted. My exposure triggered protocols, but there's probably a real threat too. The agency doesn't do anything halfway. What will you do now? Liam asked. Rachel looked around the bar, this place that had been her sanctuary for 2 years, where she'd tried to build a normal life, tried to forget the weight of the secrets she carried, the operations she'd conducted, the people she'd killed and saved in equal measure. Now, she pulled out her phone, an encrypted device that looked normal but contained technology that wouldn't be commercially available for another decade. Now I make a call I should have made 2 years ago. She dialed a number from memory, one that wasn't saved anywhere, that existed only in the minds of a handful of people with clearance levels most people didn't know existed. The phone rang once before being answered. The voice on the other end was electronically distorted, but still familiar. Phoenix, we've been watching. I know, Rachel replied. The watchers in the bar aren't exactly subtle. You've been compromised. I compromise myself, Rachel corrected. There's a difference. The distinction is irrelevant. You know the protocol. I know a lot of protocols, Rachel said. I also know I'm done following them. I'm done being dead. There was a pause. That's not your decision to make. Isn't it? Rachel's voice was steel. I've given you 7 years. 7 years of being nobody. 7 years of operations that don't exist, of being a ghost in my own life. I'm done. You know what happens to assets who refuse recall. I know what usually happens, Rachel agreed. But I also know what I know. The locations, the operations, the names. You really want to make an enemy of me? It was a threat, barely veiled. The person on the other end would understand. Rachel knew too much, had done too much, to simply be eliminated. She was a nuclear option in human form. Every detail you've seen so far has been deliberate. The stance, the tattoo placement, the commander's recognition. We're seconds from the biggest reveal you'll see today. Share this with someone who loves military mysteries. They'll thank you later. The electronic voice responded after a long pause. What do you want? I want to live, Rachel said simply. Not exist, not survive, but live. I want my name back. I want to be able to contact my family. I want to stop looking over my shoulder. Impossible. Nothing's impossible, Rachel countered. You taught me that. Besides, I have insurance. She pulled out a small device from behind the bar, something she'd hidden there her first day of work. It was a dead man's switch connected to servers around the world. If anything happened to her, everything she knew would be released. The watchers in the bar had noticed the device. One of them spoke into his sleeve, reporting the development. "You've been planning this," the voice accused. "I've been planning this since the day you declared me dead," Rachel confirmed. "I'm not unreasonable. I'll keep the secrets. I'll stay quiet about the operations, but I want my life back." Commander Carter had been listening to the one-sided conversation. Now he stepped forward. "Tell them she has my backing. Full SEAL Team 6 support." Rachel looked at him in surprise. He was putting his career, possibly his life, on the line for her. "Did you hear that?" she asked the phone. "We heard. This complicates things." "It simplifies things," Rachel corrected. "You can't disappear all of us. Too many witnesses, too many questions. The smart play is to make a deal." Another pause, longer this time. "Stand by for extraction." "No," Rachel said firmly. "No extraction, no safe houses, no debriefing. We do this on my terms or not at all." "You're not in a position to make demands," Rachel laughed, a sound without humor. "I'm in the only position that matters. I'm the one with nothing left to lose." She hung up the phone and turned to face the room. The watchers were still there, still observing, but they hadn't moved to intervene. They were waiting for orders that would determine whether tonight ended in violence or negotiation. Mason Blake broke the silence. "Are we about to be in a firefight?" "Possibly," Rachel admitted. "You should leave." But none of them moved. Ashley Sterling spoke for the group. "We're SEALs. We don't leave people behind." "I'm not your people," Rachel pointed out. "You are now," Connor Webb said firmly. "After what we did, after what you've sacrificed, you're absolutely our people." It was a declaration of loyalty from the most unlikely source. The four who had tormented her were now ready to fight for her. The irony wasn't lost on Rachel. Her phone rang again. A different number this time, one that made her eyes widen slightly. She answered it. "Phoenix." The voice wasn't electronic this time. It was clear, female, and carried the weight of significant authority. "Director," Rachel acknowledged. Everyone in the bar went still. "Director," as in the director of the CIA. "I understand you're causing quite a stir." "I'm just trying to live, ma'am." "Living is complicated for people like you." "It doesn't have to be," Rachel replied. "I've proven I can maintain cover. 2 years, no incidents until tonight." Tonight being a rather significant incident. "Tonight being the night I decided I'm done being dead," Rachel corrected. There was a sound that might have been a sigh. "You know what you're asking is unprecedented." "Everything about Ghost Team 7 was unprecedented," Rachel pointed out. "Why stop now? The Joint Chiefs are monitoring this situation. Some of them want you brought in. Others want you eliminated. I'm the only thing standing between you and a drone strike right now." Rachel looked up at the ceiling, knowing that somewhere above, satellites were tracking her every move. "I appreciate that, ma'am. Don't appreciate it yet. If we're going to do this, there are conditions." "I'm listening." "First, you remain on reserve status. If we need you, you answer." "Define need," Rachel said carefully. "Omega-level threats only, the kind of operations that require someone who's already dead." Rachel considered. "Acceptable." "Second, you undergo a full psychological evaluation. Dr. Park can handle that. I understand he's there with you." Park nodded, though the director couldn't see it. "Third," the director continued, "you never speak publicly about Ghost Team 7. Not to media, not to Congress, not to anyone without Yankee white clearance." "Already wasn't planning to," Rachel agreed. "Fourth, the insurance policy you've established gets transferred to our control." "No," Rachel said immediately. "That stays with me. It's the only thing keeping me alive." There was a pause. "Counter-proposal. The insurance stays with you, but you add a authentication protocol. It only releases if you die under suspicious circumstances, not if you're legitimately killed in action." Rachel thought about it. "I can live with that. Literally. Then we have a deal. The Watchers will withdraw. Your identity will be partially restored. You'll be listed as a retired veteran with a classified service record. Your family will be told you've been in deep cover, but are now returning to civilian life. And my sister, she deserves to know. She deserves to have you alive," the director interrupted. "The details of your service remain classified. That's non-negotiable. Rachel closed her eyes. It wasn't everything she wanted, but it was more than she'd had an hour ago. Agreed. Good. Oh, and Phoenix, welcome back to the land of the living. The line went dead. Rachel looked at the watchers, who were already moving toward the exits. One of them nodded to her slightly, a gesture of professional respect, before disappearing into the night. Commander Carter let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Did you just negotiate with the director of the CIA? I negotiated with someone who understands that some secrets are too dangerous to let loose, Rachel replied. The base lockdown alert on everyone's phones suddenly cleared. Whatever threat had been manufactured to clear the area was now resolved. Grace Amber was the first to speak. So, what now? Rachel looked around the bureau at these people who had witnessed her transformation from victim to victor, from nobody to somebody, from dead to alive. Now, she said, moving back behind the bar, I finish my shift, because dead or alive, these glasses aren't going to clean themselves. It was such a normal statement after everything that had happened that several people laughed, tension breaking like a dam. Many elite operators transitioned to civilian life, needing legal protection for their classified past. Specialized legal services now exist for deep cover operatives, helping navigate identity changes, sealed records, and protecting against those who might expose their history. Because sometimes the most dangerous part of service is what comes after. As people began to settle back into their seats, the atmosphere in the bar had completely transformed. Where there had been mockery and derision, there was now respect and awe. Rachel continued working, serving drinks, cleaning glasses, but now everyone saw her differently. They saw the slight favor of her left leg, evidence of an old injury. They noticed how she never fully turned her back to the room. They observed the way her hands moved with precision, every gesture economical and purposeful. Mason Blake approached the bar hesitantly. Ma'am, Rachel, I don't know how to apologize for what I did. Then don't, Rachel said simply. Learn from it and move on. It's not that simple, Mason insisted. I grabbed you. I threatened you. You acted on incomplete information, Rachel interrupted. It happens in the field all the time. The difference is whether you learn from it. Ashley Sterling joined them. Can I ask you something? Rachel nodded. Why didn't you fight back? You could have destroyed us all. Because, Rachel said, setting down the glass she was cleaning, violence is easy. Restraint is hard. I've done enough violence for several lifetimes. I'm trying to learn restraint. Connor Webb had been quiet, processing everything. Now he spoke up. The coordinates on your tattoo, Tokyo, was that really where I died? Rachel finished. Yes. For all intents and purposes, Captain Sarah Mitchell died in Tokyo on August 23rd, 2019. Phoenix was born. And now, tonight, Rachel Ivory gets to live. Sarah Mitchell, Commander Carter repeated. I never knew your real name. Few people did, Rachel admitted. Even fewer still alive. Liam Foster, the youngest of the group, had been silent throughout the negotiations. Now he found his voice. What was it like? Being dead, I mean? Rachel considered the question. Lonely, incredibly lonely. Imagine everyone you've ever loved thinking you're gone. Imagine wanting to call your mother on her birthday, but knowing that call could get her killed. Imagine existing in a world where you can never form real connections because you might have to disappear at any moment. The weight of her words settled over the group. They were warriors, trained for combat, but the psychological toll of Rachel's service was something beyond their experience. Dr. Samuel Park had been observing the entire interaction with clinical interest. Rachel, if you're willing, I'd like to start those psychological evaluations the director mentioned. Not tonight, obviously, but soon. Why? Rachel asked. Checking to see if I'm stable. Checking to see if you're human, Park replied gently. What you've endured would break most people. The fact that you're standing here, serving drinks, trying to build a normal life, it's remarkable. Or insane, Rachel countered. The two aren't mutually exclusive, Park said with a slight smile. The bar had started to refill as word spread that the lockdown was lifted. But now the atmosphere was different. Word was already spreading through the military grapevine. Phoenix was alive. Phoenix was here. Phoenix was the quiet bartender they had all ignored for 2 years. Henry Webb, the bar owner, emerged from his office where he had been hiding during the confrontation. He was a Vietnam veteran, old enough to have seen his share of secret operations and classified missions. He approached Rachel slowly. 2 years, he said. 2 years you've been working here, and I never suspected. That was the point, Rachel replied. But you chose my bar. Why? Rachel's expression softened slightly. Because you never asked questions, never pushed for information. You hired a woman with no real background, no references, paid in cash when I asked. You knew something was off, but you gave me a chance anyway. Henry nodded slowly. Everyone deserves a chance to start over, even ghosts. The front door opened and a new group entered, but these weren't regular customers. Their bearing, their movement, their eyes that automatically scanned the room for threats, these were operators, current ghost team members, if Rachel's assessment was correct. They didn't approach immediately, instead taking a table in the corner where they could observe. Rachel understood. They were checking on her, making sure the situation was contained, that she wasn't about to do something that would compromise ongoing operations. Commander Carter noticed them too. Friends of yours? Colleagues, Rachel corrected. Former colleagues. We don't really do friends in that world. Must be lonely, Grace Amber observed. You have no idea, Rachel replied, then caught herself. Actually, you might. Combat veterans understand isolation better than most. Mason Blake had been struggling with something, and finally voiced it. Can I ask about Tokyo? What really happened? Rachel was quiet for a long moment, then began speaking, her voice low and measured. 7 operators were sent to extract a high-value asset from a compromised safe house. Everything that could go wrong did. The extraction route was compromised. The backup route was mined. The emergency protocols failed. They were trapped in a warehouse, surrounded by hostile forces, ammunition running low. She paused, her eyes distant, seeing something none of them could imagine. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was running a parallel operation, completely unrelated. But I was monitoring radio traffic and heard their distress call. Command had written them off. The QRF was 40 minutes out, and they had maybe 10 minutes of ammunition left. So you went in alone? Connor asked, incredulous. Not alone, Rachel corrected. I had advantages. I knew the city, had been operating there for months. I had contacts in the Yakuza who owed me favors, and I had something the enemy didn't expect. Complete disregard for my own survival. Commander Carter took over the story. She came through the skylight. No rope, no backup, just dropped 3 stories into the middle of a firefight. I thought she was insane. I was, Rachel admitted. Sanity is a luxury in those situations. She laid down covering fire while we repositioned, Carter continued. Then she did something I've never seen before or since. She walked out the front door. Everyone stared at Rachel. Ashley voiced what they were all thinking. You did what? I walked out the front door, Rachel repeated. Hands up, no weapon visible. The enemy stopped firing, confused. They weren't expecting someone to surrender. While they were focused on me, the team escaped through the loading dock. But they would have killed you, Liam protested. That was the plan, Rachel said simply. My death for 7 lives. Good trade. But you survived, Grace pointed out. Rachel's smile was grim. Technically, no. Sarah Mitchell died in that warehouse. Shot 17 times according to the official report. Body burned beyond recognition in the subsequent fire. 17 times? Mason's voice was barely a whisper. Vest caught most of them, Rachel said, unconsciously touching her ribs where the scars remained. The Yakuza contacts I mentioned? They were monitoring the situation. Pulled me out during the chaos, got me to a black site medical facility. I died twice on the table, but they brought me back. Why not just return to duty? Ashley asked. Because officially dead operatives are useful, Rachel explained. No fingerprints in any system, no facial recognition hits, no family to use as leverage. I became a perfect weapon, a ghost who could go anywhere, do anything, with no connection to the United States government. The weight of her sacrifice was staggering. She had literally died for her country, then continued serving even in death. Dr. Park leaned forward. The psychological toll of that existence must have been enormous. It was, Rachel admitted. Is. Every mission, every operation, knowing that if I was caught, no one would come for me. If I was killed, there would be no funeral, no recognition, no closure for anyone who might still care about me. How many operations? Connor asked quietly. Rachel shook her head. Classified, but enough, more than enough. One of the ghost team operators from the corner table stood up and approached. He was younger than Rachel, maybe 30, with the same 1,000-yard stare that marked all of them. Phoenix, he said quietly. Reaper, she acknowledged. Heard you're going loud. Going alive, Rachel corrected. There's a difference. Reaper studied her for a moment. The community's watching. Some think you're making a mistake. Others think you're brave. What do you think? I think, Reaper said slowly, that we all have a breaking point. You just reached yours before the job killed you for real. He extended his hand. Rachel shook it, a gesture of professional respect between two people who had sacrificed everything for their country. As Reaper returned to his table, Rachel's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, but she recognized the format, operational intelligence, even in retirement. She read it, her expression darkening. What is it? Commander Carter asked. A reminder, Rachel said, that retirement doesn't mean disconnected. She showed him the message. It was a single line of text with GPS coordinates and a timestamp. Something was happening, something that might require her attention. You're not going, Carter said firmly. No, Rachel agreed. I'm not. That life is over. She deleted the message, a symbolic gesture that everyone understood. She was choosing life over duty, existence over operations. But even as she deleted it, everyone could see the struggle in her eyes. The conditioning, the training, the ingrained need to respond to threats. It didn't just disappear because she'd negotiated her freedom. Ashley Sterling had been quiet, processing everything. Now she spoke up, her voice uncertain. Can I ask something that might be inappropriate? Rachel nodded. Do you regret it? The sacrifice, the operations, all of it? Rachel considered the question for a long moment. Regret is a luxury I can't afford. Every operation I conducted, every mission I completed saved lives. Maybe not American lives directly, but lives nonetheless. Do I regret the personal cost? Every day. Do I regret the service itself? Never. It was a complex answer to a complex question, and it resonated with everyone in the room. They all understood that dichotomy, the pride in service conflicting with the personal price paid. What about your family? Grace asked. You mentioned a sister. Rachel's expression softened. Emily, 3 years younger, she's a teacher now, middle school science, has 2 kids I've never met. They think their aunt died a hero, which is true enough, I suppose. Will you contact her? Tomorrow, Rachel said, and the word carried enormous weight. The director said they'll arrange a controlled reunion. Probably tell her I was in witness protection or something similar. Not the truth, but closer to it than death. Liam Foster had been doing math in his head. You said 7 years. You've been dead for 7 years. That means you were, 25 when you died? 26, Rachel corrected. I'm 33 now, though officially I'm still 26 since dead people don't age in databases. So young, Dr. Park murmured, to give up everything so young. Young people make the best operatives, Rachel said matter-of-factly. We think we're immortal, that the mission matters more than anything. It's only later we realize what we've lost. The door opened again, and this time it was someone unexpected. Delilah Cross, the other server who worked weekends, entered looking concerned. She was a civilian, no military background, just a college student working her way through school. Rachel, I heard there was some kind of fight. Are you okay? The concern in her voice was genuine. Here was someone who knew Rachel only as the quiet, competent bartender who always covered shifts and never complained. The normalcy of her worry was jarring after the intensity of the evening's revelations. I'm fine, Delilah, Rachel assured her. Just a misunderstanding that got out of hand. Delilah looked at the crowd of military personnel, all focused on Rachel with expressions ranging from awe to respect. Must have been some misunderstanding. You could say that, Rachel replied with a slight smile. As Delilah went to the back to clock in, Mason Blake spoke up. How do you do it? Switch between the two worlds like that? Practice, Rachel said, and compartmentalization. Delilah doesn't need to know about Phoenix. She needs Rachel, the reliable co-worker. That's what I give her. But isn't that exhausting, being 2 different people? I've been 7 different people in the last 7 years, Rachel replied. 2 is actually refreshing. Commander Carter's phone rang. He answered it, his expression growing serious. Yes, sir. I understand. Yes, she's here. He held out the phone to Rachel. It's for you, Admiral Thompson. Rachel took the phone, recognizing the name, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. This was as high as military authority went. Admiral, she said simply. The conversation was brief, Rachel mostly listening, occasionally responding with, yes, sir, or understood, When she handed the phone back, her expression was unreadable. "What did he want?" Carter asked. "To thank me," Rachel said, seeming surprised herself, "and to offer me a position, training the next generation of Ghost Team operators." "That's a hell of an honor," Connor Webb said. "It's a way to keep me in the fold," Rachel corrected. "Keep me useful but controlled. Will you take it?" "I have a week to decide," Rachel said. "A week to figure out if I can actually live a normal life or if I need the mission to survive." Dr. Park nodded knowingly. The transition from operative to civilian is one of the hardest psychological adjustments. Your entire identity has been tied to the mission for so long. "Exactly," Rachel agreed. "Who is Rachel Ivory when she's not Phoenix? I honestly don't know." The vulnerability in that admission was striking. Here was someone who could kill with her bare hands, who had completed missions that would never be declassified, admitting she didn't know how to simply exist. When justice gets served this cold, you know there's more coming. Check out our next story about the female pilot everyone dismissed, until she saved an entire SEAL team. It's already loaded in the end screen. As the night wore on, the crowd in the bar shifted and changed. Some left, others arrived, but the core group remained. Rachel continued working, serving drinks, cleaning, maintaining the facade of normalcy even as her world had fundamentally changed. Around 11 p.m., another unexpected visitor arrived. It was Aaron Mitchell, the MP who would have been called if the situation had escalated. He was off duty, out of uniform, but his purpose was clear. "Heard there was some excitement," he said, approaching the bar. "Nothing official," Rachel replied. "Nothing that needs a report." Aaron studied her for a moment. "You know, I always wondered about you. Something about the way you moved, the way you watched everyone. My dad was Special Forces, taught me to recognize operators. And I figured if you wanted to be left alone, you had your reasons." He paused. "Glad you're getting to come back to the world." The phrase was military, referring to returning from deployment, but it carried extra weight in Rachel's case. She was literally coming back from the dead. As midnight approached, the bar began to empty. The Ghost Team operators in the corner left first, Reaper giving Rachel a slight nod as they departed. Other military personnel filtered out, each offering some gesture of respect or acknowledgement as they left. Finally, only the core group remained: Commander Carter, Mason Blake, Ashley Sterling, Connor Webb, Liam Foster, Grace Amber, Dr. Park, and Henry Webb, the owner. "So, what now?" Henry asked. "You going to keep working here?" "If you'll have me," Rachel replied. "I need something normal, something grounding. This job, this place, it's been my anchor for 2 years. The job's yours as long as you want it," Henry assured her, "though I suspect you might have other opportunities soon." Rachel's phone buzzed. Another text, this one from a recognized number. Her handler, or former handler, she wasn't sure which anymore. "Package delivered to your apartment. Everything you need for tomorrow." Tomorrow. The reunion with her sister. Documents that would give her back some semblance of identity. The beginning of Rachel Ivory's official existence. "I should go," she said, beginning to close down the bar for the night. "Tomorrow's going to be complicated." "Need an escort?" Commander Carter offered. "The agency might not be happy about losing an asset." "They're not losing an asset," Rachel replied. "They're gaining a reserve operative with a very good reason to stay loyal. My family becomes leverage, but it also becomes motivation. They know I won't do anything to jeopardize their safety." It was a cold assessment, but accurate. The intelligence world operated on pragmatism, not sentiment. As she finished cleaning and closing procedures, the others helped, creating an oddly domestic scene. Warriors who had threatened her hours ago now stacked chairs and wiped tables. Mason Blake was struggling with something, finally voicing it as they worked. "I need you to know something. What I did earlier, the aggression, the bullying, it's not who I want to be. Seeing you, what you sacrificed, how you handled us with such restraint, it's changed something in me." Rachel paused in her cleaning. "We all have moments we're not proud of. The question is what we do after those moments." "I want to be better," Mason said firmly. "Will you help me? Train me, I mean, not in operations, but in restraint, in control." It was an unexpected request. Rachel considered it. The Admiral's offer to train the next generation. Maybe it's not just about Ghost Team operators. Maybe it's about training all operators to be better, more controlled, more thoughtful. Ashley Sterling added her voice. "I'd like that training too," The arrogance, the superiority complex, it's a shield, but it's also a weakness. One by one, the others agreed. They wanted to learn from her, not just tactical skills, but the mental discipline, the emotional control, the ability to choose restraint over violence. You could revolutionize special operations training, Dr. Park said. Integrate psychological resilience with tactical excellence. Rachel looked at each of them. Hours ago, they had been her tormentors. Now they were offering to be her students. The transformation was remarkable. "Let me get through tomorrow first," she said. "Let me figure out how to be alive again. Then we'll see about teaching others." As they prepared to leave, Connor Webb asked one final question. "The tattoo, the real one with the phoenix, when did you get it?" 6 months after Tokyo, Rachel replied. "In a black market parlor in Singapore. The artist was former Yakuza, understood the significance of marking someone who was officially dead. He used special ink, visible only under certain light conditions. Said it was appropriate for someone living between worlds." "And the names in the stars?" "Added one at a time," Rachel said, touching her shoulder where the tattoo rested. "Each one after I checked to make sure they were still alive, still serving. My way of remembering why the sacrifice was worth it. Commander Carter's name was the first. She'd already revealed that. But the others were equally significant, operators who had gone on to save other lives, complete other missions, because they'd survived Tokyo." As they finally left the bar, Rachel stood alone in the doorway, looking out at the night. The California air was cool, carrying the salt scent of the nearby ocean. Somewhere out there, her sister was sleeping, not knowing that tomorrow her dead sister would call. Somewhere, operators were conducting missions that didn't exist. Somewhere, threats were being neutralized by people who would never be acknowledged. But here, now, Rachel Ivory was about to start living. Her phone rang one more time. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but when she answered, the voice was familiar. "Phoenix." It was her old team leader from before Tokyo, someone she hadn't heard from in years. "That's not my name anymore," she replied. "No, I suppose it's not. Heard you're going public, or as public as someone like us can go. News travels fast. In our community, it does. Listen, I wanted you to know something. What you did in Tokyo, what you've done since, it mattered. Every operation, every sacrifice, it mattered." "I know," Rachel said quietly. "Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you saved 7 operators who went on to save hundreds more. The ripple effect of your sacrifice is immeasurable." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Thank you for that." "No, Phoenix." "Rachel, thank you, and welcome back to the world." The call ended. Rachel locked the bar door and walked to her car, a nondescript sedan that wouldn't draw attention. As she drove home, she thought about the evening's events. In a few hours, she'd gone from nobody to somebody, from dead to alive, from Phoenix to Rachel. Her apartment was Spartan, almost military in its organization. She'd never decorated, never made it personal. What was the point when she might have to disappear at any moment? But now, looking at the bare walls and empty spaces, she realized she could finally make it a home. The package her handler had mentioned was on her kitchen table. Inside were documents: a driver's license with her real name, a passport, a DD-214 showing an honorable discharge with most details redacted, and a letter. The letter was handwritten, unusual in the digital age. She recognized the handwriting, the director herself. "Rachel, your service has been extraordinary, your sacrifice immeasurable. The country owes you a debt it can never fully repay, but perhaps we can give you something more valuable than medals or recognition, the chance to live. Your sister has been told you were in deep witness protection after testifying in a classified terrorism case. She believes you've been in protective custody for 7 years. It's close enough to the truth to be believable, vague enough to discourage questions. The number below is hers. She's waiting for your call. Remember, the best cover is always mostly truth. You're a veteran who served in classified operations. You're someone who sacrificed years for your country. You're a hero who can never fully tell her story. All true. Welcome back to life, Rachel Ivory. Use it well. M." Rachel set down the letter and picked up her phone. It was past midnight, too late to call tonight. But tomorrow she would hear her sister's voice for the first time in 7 years. She moved to her window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there were the other members of Ghost Team 7, the ones still operational, still dead to the world. She wondered if they envied her or pitied her, maybe both. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mason Blake. "Thank you for not killing us tonight. Seriously." She smiled slightly and replied, "Thank you for giving me a reason to show restraint." Another text, this one from Commander Carter. "The offer stands. SEAL Team 6 would be honored to have you as a training consultant." Then Ashley Sterling. "I researched ghost teams tonight. What I found was mostly redacted, but enough to understand the weight you've carried. Thank you for your service doesn't seem adequate." The messages kept coming from people who had witnessed her transformation, who had seen behind the mask, each one offering support, respect, acknowledgement. But the one that touched her most came from Grace Amber. "From one wounded warrior to another, the visible scars are easier than the invisible ones. If you need someone who understands, I'm here." Rachel set down her phone and moved to her closet. In the back, hidden behind civilian clothes, was a go bag. Every operative had one, packed with everything needed to disappear in 30 seconds. Cash in multiple currencies, fake passports, weapons, medical supplies. She pulled it out, set it on her bed, and began unpacking it. Each item removed was a step away from that life. The false passports went into a burn bag. The weapons would be turned in tomorrow. The cash, well, the cash could go toward finally decorating her apartment. At the very bottom of the bag was something wrapped in cloth. She unwrapped it carefully, revealing a challenge coin. Not just any coin, but one given to her by the president himself after an operation that had prevented a nuclear incident. No one would ever know about that operation, but this coin was proof it had happened. She set it on her nightstand, the first personal item she'd displayed in 2 years. As she prepared for bed, her mind wandered to the future. Tomorrow she would call Emily. Next week, she would meet with Admiral Thompson about the training position. Next month, maybe she'd even go on a date, something normal people did. But tonight, she was neither Phoenix nor fully Rachel Ivory yet. She was in transition, emerging from death into life, from shadow into light. Her phone rang one more time. She almost didn't answer, tired of the emotional weight of the evening, but the caller ID showed a number that made her heart stop. It was Emily, her sister. With trembling fingers she answered. "Sarah?" Emily's voice was broken, sob-filled. "Sarah, is it really you?" The director must have told her tonight, unable to wait until morning. "It's me, Em," Rachel said, her own voice cracking. "It's really me. They said you were dead. We had a funeral. I grieved for you for 7 years. I know. I'm so sorry. I wanted to contact you so many times. Where were you? What happened?" Rachel closed her eyes, choosing her words carefully. "I was protecting people, doing work that required me to disappear. I can't tell you details, but I promise you, it was necessary. 7 years, Sarah. 7 years I thought my sister was dead." "I know," Rachel repeated. "I know, and I'm sorry. But I'm here now, I'm alive, and I'm not going anywhere." They talked for 2 hours, Emily cycling through anger, relief, confusion, and joy. Rachel answered what she could, deflected what she couldn't, and slowly began rebuilding the bridge between them. When they finally hung up, with plans to meet in person next week, Rachel realized she was crying. For the first time in 7 years, she was allowing herself to feel the full weight of what she'd lost and what she was gaining back. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was 3 a.m., not a normal time for visitors. She approached carefully, checking through the peephole. It was Reaper, the ghost team operative from the bar. She opened the door. "Problem?" "No problem," he said. "Just wanted to give you this." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a photo, taken tonight at the bar. It showed her behind the counter, surrounded by the people who had become unlikely allies. But what struck her was her own expression. For the first time in 7 years, she looked alive. "The community is watching," Reaper said. "Some of us are considering following your lead. You've shown it's possible to come back." "It's not easy," Rachel warned. "Neither is staying dead," Reaper replied. He gave her a slight nod and disappeared into the night. Rachel closed the door and looked at the photo again. This was her new beginning, messy and complicated and dangerous in its own way. But it was real. She was real. Tomorrow would bring challenges, the Admiral's offer, the training possibility, the slow process of rebuilding a life. But tonight, for the first time in 7 years, Sarah Mitchell, Phoenix, Rachel Ivory, all versions of herself were integrated into one person who was finally, truly alive. She went to her window one more time, looking out at the city. Somewhere, threats were being neutralized by ghosts. Somewhere, operations that didn't exist were saving lives. But here, in this small apartment, a woman who had been dead for 7 years was planning what to make for breakfast. It was such a normal thought it made her laugh, then cry, then laugh again. The phone on her kitchen table buzzed. Another operational message, coordinates, and a timestamp. Another crisis somewhere in the world. She picked up the phone, looked at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without reading the details. She was done being a ghost. It was time to learn how to be human again. As dawn approached, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Rachel made a decision. She picked up her phone and sent a message to Admiral Thompson. "I'll take the position, but on my terms. We teach restraint as much as action. We teach humanity alongside tactics. We create operators who know when not to fight." The response came quickly. "Agreed. Welcome to the future of special operations, Ms. Ivory." Ms. Ivory, not Phoenix, not Captain Mitchell, just Ms. Ivory. A woman with a future instead of just a past. She thought about Mason Blake and his request for training, about Ashley Sterling's recognition of her own flaws, about all of them wanting to be better. Maybe that was her real mission now, not to create more ghosts, but to ensure the living remembered their humanity. The sun was fully up now. Rachel made coffee, a simple act that felt revolutionary. She had nowhere urgent to be, no mission to complete, no identity to maintain. She could just exist. Her phone rang. "Commander Carter. Did I wake you?" "I haven't slept," Rachel admitted. "Neither have I. Listen, the team has been talking. We want to set up a fund, a scholarship for family members of operators who die in classified operations. People like your sister, who lost someone but can never know the full truth." Rachel was quiet for a moment. That's actually beautiful. We're calling it the Phoenix Foundation, if you're okay with that." She laughed, but it was warm, not bitter. "From the ashes, new life. Yes, I'm okay with that." As she ended the call, Rachel realized something. The evening that had started with humiliation and threats had ended with purpose and connection. She had been forced to reveal herself, but in doing so, had found a community she didn't know she needed. The apartment that had been a safe house was becoming a home. The job that had been a cover was becoming a calling. The woman who had been dead was learning to live. Her phone displayed one final message, this one from Dr. Park. "First therapy session tomorrow at 10 a.m. We'll work on integration, on becoming whole. It's time to heal, Rachel." Healing. What a foreign concept for someone who had been a weapon for so long. But maybe, just maybe, it was possible. Rachel Ivory, formerly Sarah Mitchell, formerly Phoenix, formerly dead, stood in her kitchen as the morning sun streamed through her window. She was 33 years old and had lived more lives than most people could imagine. She had saved lives, taken lives, and sacrificed her own life for the greater good. But now, for the first time in 7 years, she had something she'd thought was lost forever, the possibility of a future that belonged to her. The knock at her door was soft, tentative. She looked through the peephole to see Delilah Cross, her coworker from the bar, holding a bag of what smelled like fresh pastries. "I know it's early," Delilah said when Rachel opened the door, "but I wanted to check on you. Last night seemed intense." Rachel accepted the bag, touched by the simple gesture of kindness. "Thank you. Would you like some coffee?" As Delilah entered, Rachel realized this was the first person she'd invited into her apartment in 2 years. Another small step toward normalcy. They sat at Rachel's kitchen table, sharing pastries and coffee, talking about nothing important. Delilah didn't ask about the previous night's revelations, didn't push for information. She just offered presence, companionship, humanity. "You know," Delilah said as she prepared to leave, "whatever happened last night, whoever you really are, you're still Rachel to me. The woman who covers my shifts when my mom is sick, who makes sure I get home safe after late nights, who listens when I need to vent about school. That's who you are." After Delilah left, Rachel stood in her apartment, processing everything. In 24 hours, her entire world had changed. She had gone from shadow to light, from death to life, from Phoenix to Rachel. Her phone showed 17 missed calls from unknown numbers, probably other Ghost Team operators wanting to know how she'd managed to negotiate her freedom. She'd deal with them later. Right now, she had a life to build. She opened her laptop and began typing. A training manual, combining tactical excellence with ethical decision-making. Operational Success with Psychological Wellness. The Future of Special Operations, Built on the Ashes of Her Past. The title page read, The Phoenix Protocol, Rising from Operational Death to Tactical Life by Rachel Ivory. Below that, a dedication, for the 7 who lived and all the ghosts still serving in shadow. As she typed, her phone buzzed with one final message. This one made her smile. It was from Mason Blake. Bar opens at 5 p.m. We'll be there. Not to harass the bartender, but to learn from a legend. First round's on us. Actually, every round is on us for the rest of your life. Rachel closed her laptop and prepared for her first day of being alive. It would be complicated, messy, potentially dangerous. The agency would be watching. Her enemies, those still living who thought she was dead, might discover the truth. The psychological toll of integration would be immense, but she was ready. 7 years of being dead had prepared her for the challenge of living. As she headed to the shower, preparing for her therapy session with Dr. Park, her phone rang one more time. The caller ID simply said, "Mom." Rachel's heart stopped. The director had said family would be notified, but she hadn't expected. With trembling hands, she answered, "Sarah, my baby girl, is it really you?" For the second time in 24 hours, Rachel Ivory, Phoenix, Sarah Mitchell, whoever she was now, broke down completely. But these weren't tears of sorrow or loss. They were tears of reunion, of resurrection, of return. "Hi, Mom," she managed through the sobs. "I'm home." And for the first time in 7 years, it was true. She was home. Not a physical location, but a state of being. She was home in her own skin, in her own life, in her own future. The ghost was gone, the phoenix had risen, and Rachel Ivory was ready to live. The therapy session with Dr. Park took place in a nondescript office building, 3 blocks from the base. Rachel arrived 15 minutes early, a habit from her operational days when early arrival meant controlling the environment. She sat in her car, watching the building's entrances and exits, noting the security cameras, the blind spots, the escape routes. Old habits died hard, even when you were trying to resurrect yourself from the dead. Dr. Park met her in the lobby, his demeanor professional but warm. "Ready for this?" "I've been interrogated by professionals in 12 countries," Rachel replied. "How different can therapy be?" "You'd be surprised," Park said with a slight smile. "Interrogators want information. Therapists want understanding. The second is often harder to give." The office was deliberately neutral, designed to be non-threatening. Rachel still positioned herself where she could see both the door and window, her back to a solid wall. Park noticed but didn't comment, simply taking his seat across from her. "Let's start with something simple," he began. "Who are you?" Rachel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's simple? For most people, yes. For you, I imagine it's the hardest question in the world." She considered for a long moment. "I'm a collection of identities, none of them entirely real anymore. Sarah Mitchell died in Tokyo. Phoenix never officially existed. Rachel Ivory is a cover that became a habit. I honestly don't know who I am." "Then let's work backwards," Park suggested. "Who were you before all of this?" "Sarah Mitchell, farm girl from Nebraska, joined the Navy at 18 because I wanted to see the world. Made it through SEAL qualification, one of the first women to do so. Excelled at intelligence gathering, linguistic skills, cultural adaptation, got recruited for special operations, then deeper, then so deep I disappeared entirely." What did Sarah Mitchell want? The question caught her off guard. "What do you mean? Before the Navy, before the operations, what did that farm girl from Nebraska want?" Rachel was quiet for a long time. She wanted to matter, to do something important, to be more than just another person living and dying without impact. And did she achieve that? "Phoenix achieved that," Rachel corrected. "Sarah Mitchell never got the chance." "But Phoenix is Sarah Mitchell. Rachel Ivory is Sarah Mitchell. They're all you." "Are they?" Rachel challenged. "Can you be the same person after you've killed 43 people, after you've watched friends die, after you've been dead yourself for 7 years? Park leaned forward. "No, you can't be the same person. But you can be a person who integrates all those experiences into something new, something whole. I don't know how to do that. That's why we're here," Park said gently, "to figure it out together." They talked for 2 hours, excavating layers of trauma, operational conditioning, and buried humanity. By the end, Rachel felt raw, exposed, but also somehow lighter. As she was leaving, Park said, You know, most people think PTSD is about what happened to you. But for operators like you, it's often about what you had to become. The healing isn't just about processing trauma, it's about remembering how to be human. What if I can't? Rachel asked quietly. What if I'm too broken? Broken things can be repaired, Park replied. Sometimes they're even stronger for having been broken, like a phoenix rising from ashes. Rachel smiled slightly. Everyone seems obsessed with that metaphor. Because it fits, you died and came back. Now you get to decide what form your resurrection takes. 3 days later, Rachel stood in front of 24 SEAL candidates at the Naval Special Warfare Training Center. Admiral Thompson had fast-tracked her consulting position, eager to integrate her unique perspective into training protocols. "Gentlemen," she began, then nodded to the 3 women in the group. "And ladies, I'm here to teach you something that might save your life, but more importantly, might save your soul. I'm here to teach you when not to fight." A hand went up in the back. "Ma'am, with respect, we're here to learn how to fight." "No," Rachel corrected. "You're here to learn how to win. Sometimes winning means not fighting at all. Sometimes the greatest victory is the battle you choose not to engage in." She moved to the center of the room. "How many of you have heard of Ghost Team 7? No hands went up, but she saw recognition in several eyes. "Officially, it doesn't exist. Unofficially, it's what happens when operators go so deep they cease to exist as people. I spent 7 years as a ghost. I completed 37 operations that will never be acknowledged. I saved approximately 300 lives and took 43. And you know what I learned?" The room was silent, everyone leaning forward. "I learned that every kill costs you something. Every operation takes a piece of your humanity. And if you're not careful, if you don't actively work to maintain your connection to the person you were before the training, you'll wake up one day and realize you've become a weapon instead of a warrior." She pulled up a presentation on the screen behind her. "Today we're going to talk about restraint, about the tactical advantage of mercy, about how sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is not pull the trigger." A trainee in the front row, cocky and young, challenged her. "Sounds like weakness to me, ma'am." Rachel moved so fast he didn't see it coming. In less than a second, she had him in a hold that could have killed him 3 different ways. But she didn't apply pressure, didn't cause pain, just held him immobilized. "I could kill you right now," she said conversationally. "Carotid artery compression, cervical dislocation, or tracheal crush. 3 seconds, any method. But I'm choosing not to. That's not weakness, that's strength. The strength to have absolute power and choose not to use it." She released him, and he stumbled back to his seat, face flushed. "In Tokyo, I had the opportunity to kill 17 combatants. I killed 3. The other 14, I incapacitated non-lethally. Those 14 men are now in prison, providing intelligence that has saved dozens of lives. If I'd killed them all, which would have been easier and safer for me, that intelligence dies with them." She moved through the room, making eye contact with each trainee. "You're being trained to be ultimate warriors, but I'm here to make sure you remember you're also human beings, that the mission matters, but so does your ability to live with yourself after the mission." The training session went for 4 hours. She taught them de-escalation techniques, psychological warfare that didn't require violence, and most importantly, how to maintain their humanity in inhuman situations. At the end, the cocky trainee approached her. "Ma'am, I apologize for my earlier comment. I understand now." "No, you don't," Rachel said, not unkindly. "You won't understand until you're in the field, until you have someone in your sights and have to make the choice. But at least now, you know there is a choice." That evening, Rachel returned to Murphy's last round for her shift. The bar was packed, word having spread through the military community about who their bartender really was. But there was no mockery now, no challenges, just respect and curiosity. Mason Blake was there, as promised, with Ashley, Connor, and Liam. They had taken what had become their regular table, close enough to talk to Rachel during slow moments, but not so close as to interfere with her work. "How was the training session?" Connor asked when she brought their drinks. "Challenging," Rachel admitted. "It's hard to teach restraint to people who are being trained to be weapons." "But necessary," Ashley added. She'd been doing her own research, reading everything she could find about psychological impacts on special operators. The suicide rate among Special Forces veterans is terrifying. 22 a day, Rachel said quietly, though that number only counts the ones we know about. Ghosts who kill themselves don't make the statistics. It was a sobering thought. Grace Amber, who had become a regular fixture at Rachel's end of the bar, raised her glass. To the ones we've lost, and the ones still fighting. They drank in silence, each lost in their own memories of friends who hadn't made it back, either from combat or from the war that continued in their minds after coming home. The door opened, and Rachel's breath caught. Emily stood there, her sister, looking exactly as she remembered, but also completely different. 7 years had added lines around her eyes, streaks of gray in her hair that hadn't been there before. "Sarah?" Emily's voice was uncertain. Rachel came around the bar, moving slowly, as if sudden movement might shatter the moment. "Hi, Em." They stood facing each other for a long moment. Then Emily launched herself at Rachel, hugging her so tight it hurt. They both cried, 7 years of separation dissolving in tears and fierce embraces. "I thought you were dead," Emily kept repeating. "I thought you were dead." "I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Henry Webb quietly ushered them to his office, giving them privacy for their reunion. They talked for hours, Emily showing pictures of her kids on her phone, Rachel trying to explain without explaining where she'd been. "Were you a spy?" Emily asked finally. "Something like that," Rachel admitted. Did you do dangerous things?" "Yes." "Did you save people?" Rachel thought of Tokyo, of Commander Carter, and the 6 others. "Yes." "Then I'm proud of you," Emily said firmly. "I'm angry and hurt and confused, but I'm proud of you." They made plans for Rachel to meet Emily's children the following week. "What do I tell them about where you've been?" "Tell them I was working far away, helping people," Rachel suggested. "It's true enough." As Emily prepared to leave, she turned back. "That woman you are now, Rachel Ivory, is that who you want to be?" Rachel considered. "I think she's who I'm becoming. Sarah Mitchell was who I was. Phoenix was who I had to be. Rachel Ivory is who I'm choosing to be. Then I'll learn to love Rachel, just like I loved Sarah." After Emily left, Rachel returned to the bar and find it even more crowded. Word had spread that Phoenix was working tonight, and operators from all over the base had come to catch a glimpse of the legend. But at 2 a.m., after last call, when the bar was empty except for the core group that had become her unofficial support system, Rachel's encrypted phone rang. The number was one she recognized, but had hoped never to see again. She answered it. "Phoenix." The voice was mechanically distorted, untraceable. "I told you, that's not my name anymore. We have a situation. Tokyo is compromised. The 7 you saved are being hunted. Someone leaked their identities." Rachel's blood ran cold. Commander Carter was one of those 7. "Who?" "Unknown. But they've already gotten to 2. Morrison and Banks are dead." Rachel closed her eyes. She knew those names, had seen them in her stars. "This isn't my problem anymore," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "It became your problem when you chose to reveal yourself. Your exposure created a data trail. Someone followed it back to Tokyo, to the 7. The weight of unintended consequences crashed down on her. By choosing to live, had she sentenced others to die? "What do you need from me?" "Nothing. This is a courtesy call. We're handling it. But Commander Carter and the others should increase their security." The line went dead. Rachel looked at Carter, who had been watching her face throughout the call. "Bad news?" he asked. She told them about Morrison and Banks, about the leak, about the danger. The atmosphere in the bar shifted, became operational. "We need to go dark," Ashley said immediately. "All 7 survivors, off the grid until this is resolved." "Can't," Carter replied. "We have ongoing operations, responsibilities. We can't just disappear." "Then we protect each other," Mason declared. "Rotating security details." They spent the next hour planning, the SEALs falling back into operational mode. But Rachel saw the deeper truth. This was her fault. Her decision to come back to life had created ripples, and those ripples were turning into waves that threatened to drown the people she'd saved. Her phone buzzed. Another encrypted message, this one containing a single photo. It showed a wall with 7 photographs pinned to it, 2 crossed out with red X's. Morrison and Banks. The other 5 were circled, including Carter's. Below the photos was a message. "The dead should stay dead. Phoenix rises, others fall. I have to go back," Rachel said quietly. "I have to become Phoenix again." "No," Dr. Park said firmly. "That's not the answer. Going back to being a ghost won't solve this." "Then what will?" "Finding out who's behind it," Connor suggested. "This isn't random. Someone with knowledge of classified operations is hunting specific targets. Grace Amber had been quiet, thinking. Now she spoke. What if it's not about Tokyo at all? What if it's about you, someone wanting to draw Phoenix out? The possibility hung in the air. Rachel considered it. Who would want her operational again badly enough to kill innocent operators? I need to make a call, she said. She dialed the director's personal line, the one given only for absolute emergencies. I wondered when you'd call, the director said without preamble. You know about Morrison and Banks? I know everything that happens in my world, Rachel. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What are my options? Officially, none. You're retired, remember? Unofficially, the resources you need are available if you choose to use them. This is connected to my exposure, isn't it? Everything is connected, the director replied cryptically. The question is whether you are willing to see the connections. Rachel understood. This wasn't just about the Tokyo 7. This was about something bigger, something that her resurrection had triggered. Send me the files, she said finally. Everything on Morrison and Banks' deaths. Everything on the Tokyo operation. Everything you have. Already sent. Check your secure drop. The call ended. Rachel looked at the group around her. These people who had become her anchors to humanity, who were now potentially in danger because of her. I won't become Phoenix again, she said firmly. But I won't let anyone else die because of my choice to live. We're going to find who's behind this, and we're going to stop them. We? Carter asked. We, Rachel confirmed. I'm done operating alone. As dawn approached once again, they made their plans. Rachel would use her connections, her skills, her knowledge, but she wouldn't disappear back into the shadows. She would investigate as Rachel Ivory, not as Phoenix. Her phone rang one final time. The caller ID showed a number that made everyone in the room tense. It was tagged as coming from North Korea. Rachel answered it on speaker. Hello, Phoenix. The voice was unaccented English, cultured, familiar in a way that made Rachel's skin crawl. Dimitri, she breathed. You're supposed to be dead. Funny, I could say the same about you. But then, we both know how flexible death can be in our line of work. Dmitry Volkov, former Spetsnaz, turned mercenary, turned ghost. Rachel had supposedly killed him in Prague 3 years ago. What do you want? What I've always wanted. A rematch. You took everything from me in Prague. My team, my reputation, my life. Now I'm returning the favor. By killing innocent operators? Innocent? Dmitry laughed. No one in our world is innocent, but they're not the real targets, merely bait. I want you, Phoenix, the real you, not some bartender playing human. I'm not Phoenix anymore. You will be, Dmitry said confidently. By the time I'm done, you'll have no choice but to become her again. And when you do, when you're fully operational, then we'll have our rematch. Why wait? Why not come for me now? Because Rachel Ivory isn't worthy of my attention. Only Phoenix is. Become her again, or watch everyone you saved die one by one. The line went dead. Rachel stood frozen, the weight of the situation crashing down. Her past had literally come back to haunt her, and it was hunting the people she'd sacrificed everything to save. Prague? Carter asked quietly. Classified, Rachel said automatically, then caught herself. No, you deserve to know. Prague was a black operation. Dmitry was selling nuclear materials to terrorists. I was sent to stop him. The operation went sideways. His entire team was killed. I thought he was too. But he survived. Apparently. And now he wants revenge. So, we give it to him, Mason said. Set a trap. Use you as bait. No, Rachel said firmly. I won't become Phoenix again. I won't give him that satisfaction. Then what? Rachel looked at each of them. These unlikely allies who had become something like family. We do something he won't expect. We hunt him as a team, not as ghosts or operators, but as people who refuse to be victims. Her phone buzzed with coordinates and a time. Tomorrow night. The location was significant. The warehouse in Tokyo where the original operation had taken place. He wants to recreate it, Connor said, understanding immediately. He wants to reverse the scenario. Then we reverse it on him, Rachel said. But not as Phoenix, as Rachel Ivory, and all of you. He expects a ghost. Let's give him something real instead. As they dispersed to prepare, each knowing their role in the plan they'd formulated, Rachel stood alone in the bar one more time. She looked at her reflection in the mirror behind the bottles. She saw Sarah Mitchell's eyes, Phoenix's posture, Rachel Ivory's exhaustion. All three, integrated into someone new. Tomorrow night would determine whether she could truly leave Phoenix behind, or whether some ghosts were destined to haunt forever. But either way, she wouldn't face it alone. She had something Phoenix never had. People who knew her, all of her, and stood with her anyway. The war between her past and future was about to reach its conclusion. And for the first time since Tokyo, Rachel Ivory was ready to fight not as a ghost but as a human being. The circle was closing. Phoenix had risen, fallen, and risen again. Now it was time to see if Rachel Ivory could soar on her own wings, or if she would always be trapped in the ashes of who she used to be.